Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer, subscriber. Either way, I'm very happy to have you here. So today's going to be talking to you about all the books that I read throughout the month of January. We are in February now. I managed to read 5 books in January. I finished one very early on in the month, and then I finished one literally on the last day of the month. It was a very packed month full of reading. I kind of read my first 2 books very quickly, and then I had a gap, just lots of reading and then not much finishing of books, and then I finished the last 3 within the last part of the month. So it was a busy month of reading, but I'm really happy with the books I managed to get to, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about them. If you guys didn't see my what I got for Christmas video, you wouldn't know that I actually received a Kindle for Christmas. I got the Kindle Paperwhite, I think it's the 11th generation, but I can link all the details about it down below. It was kind of like a surprise gift, and it was something I always kind of wanted, but I wasn't sure how much I would use it. But I actually did read 2 books this month on the Kindle, so yeah. The first book I did read was on the Kindle, and that was Gentlemen Prefer Blondes by Anita Loos. I'm not sure. This book was 99p on Kindle, and I wanted a book to read on there. I'd heard about it through Carly's videos. If you don't already watch her channel, she's amazing, you should definitely check her out. So when I saw this book, it was super cheap. I was like, it was the perfect first book to read on my Kindle, and I purchased it and then started it immediately. This book is better known through the 1953 film, which stars Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe. There are quite a few similarities between the book and the film, but the book is kind of made up of lots of little moments, and the film is kind of just like one storyline, so it like zeroes in on a couple of the moments. It's not a completely accurate adaptation, but it is pretty close, and it's a lot of fun obviously. It's a musical and it's got these iconic actresses in it. So the book follows Lorelai and Dorothy, who are 2 best friends, and it's basically about how they move around kind of high society New York as well as high society London and Paris, relying on the funding essentially of older men who are intent on kind of educating them. It's set in the 1920s when women were very much kind of expected to get married like quite early on, and also to marry into wealth, especially if they did not already possess it themselves. Lorelai and Dorothy came from a very frugal background, so they are very keen to weave their way into society. Our main character is very much a material girl, so what she'll do, she'll flirt with a rich man, get him interested in her, and get him to purchase like all the things that she wants, then get engaged to him, and somehow the engagement will break down. The man is doing whatever he can in order to get the girl, and the girl is doing whatever she can in order to get the kind of economical gain before ditching him. Both the women, but particularly the main character, play dumb. It's basically about this kind of manipulation of the men. The men are so stupid in it. There's a lot of humour in it, and it's very cool that it was written by a woman in the 20s. It was quite like a bold thing to write. Despite the kind of enjoyment and the kind of general fun of the book, I didn't only end up giving it 3 stars, which originally was a 2.5, and then I brought it up to 3 because I gave the book after this a lower rating, and I was like, I can't have these books on the same level, because this one was really good. I just felt bored by it a little bit. It did get like extremely repetitive. It's told in like a diary style of the main character, and she kind of writes in the same way obviously because they're always maintaining the character's voice, but it does mean that it kind of drags out despite it being such a short book. So yeah, I recommend it. Maybe if you can get it from the library or something like that, or the ebook. Like I said, it's only cheap, so yeah, it was a good read, and it was nice to start the year off with a modern classic, but it was not everything and more. So the next book I read was also a disappointment, but I was kind of expecting that a little bit, because the book I decided to pick up was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. So this is the first book in a 4-part series of kind of like companion books, and so you don't have to read them in order, but the story kind of just does make more sense. The end of this one kind of did lead into the topics we're going to be talking about in the second book. This follows Alex and Ava. Ava had an event in her childhood that was very traumatic, and it means that her brother is extremely protective of her, and so when the brother moves to South America to do kind of a placement within his study and within his work, he asks for his best friend Alex to move in next door to Ava, which is where the brother was living, to kind of watch over her. Definitely kind of the brother's best friend trope. This book was extremely poorly written. Like, it was extremely entertaining. The concept of it was just absolutely wild. There's so many subplots within this, and you really have to kind of stretch your imagination because these events are so unbelievable. The actual writing style was kind of easy to get through, but also just like not good, and I found the main character, the main guy, super duper possessive and super controlling. One of those people who's like, lay a hand on her and I'll kill you, and that's not just like a threat, that's literally like a, I will do this to you. So it was kind of terrifying. He does carry out some things I'm just like, this guy is a psychopath. So I didn't find him at all attractive, like literally at all. I found it kind of hard to root for Alex and Ava, but Ava did really love him despite his kind of stalkerish tendencies. It was fun. That's the reason why it gets the 2.5 stars, but the rest of it was kind of lacking or kind of too much there. I am interested in picking up the second book in this series because I've heard that lots of people prefer that one over this one. But fingers crossed the guy in the second one is not quite to the extreme level that Alex is, because this was like a bit too much. The next book that I picked up in January was The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is a book that I actually did an entire like one book focus reading vlog. It's spoiler free. If you guys want to check that out, I'll make sure it's linked on the screen down below. But this follows Oak and Ren. Oak is kind of like a side character in the Folk of the Air trilogy, which is one of my favourite ever series. And this book did release at the beginning of January, so it was my most anticipated release of the year. And it's kind of sad that it's over now, but you know. I gave this book 4.5 stars at the time. I'm considering dropping it down to a 4 because while I did really enjoy it, I did feel like there were some things that were lacking from this. I love Holly Black's writing. I love the world she's kind of created, and I love the way that she kind of captures the genre of fantasy and she makes it so magical, because that's exactly kind of what I look for when I'm reading a fantasy book. And this did have that aspect, which obviously brought the rating up. Something was not quite right. I think one of the things was that the main character Oak strongly resembles Carden in the first book, so I found it kind of hard to distinguish him from previous character. I really liked our main character Surin, and I liked following a fairy because in the first series we follow a human, so it was fun seeing how two fairies interacted as opposed to like a fairy and a human. But there are some lines that really kind of caught my attention and caused me to pause. So overall I did really enjoy it, but it wasn't like a perfect 5 stars, which all the previous books in the Folk of the Air trilogy were. If you're curious for more information about it and more of my thoughts and feelings, then you can check out the vlog, which like I said will be linked in all the places that I can link. So the next book that I read in January was Most of All You by Mia Sheridan. So this is another book that I read on my Kindle, and I love this book. It was so good. I definitely recommend checking out trigger warnings because this book is kind of packed full of triggering subjects. This book follows Ellie and Gabriel. Ellie is a stripper and she works in a kind of nightclub, gentleman's club is what they call it. And one day Gabriel comes in to the strip club and he seems completely out of place there, but requests that he has the kind of one-on-one session with Ellie. That's not for her to like strip for him or anything, but it's just so that they can interact, because he was kidnapped as a child and he's had like no experience with physical intimacy. Even holding someone's hand or giving someone a hug, that's just not something that he can like cope with because of his like past experiences. Ellie is very kind of guarded herself, again to do with her past, but after time this beautiful friendship forms between the two characters. But what I really loved about this book is that while it was kind of like trauma bonding, these two like broken people connecting and becoming whole, the kind of third act conflict wasn't so much about breaking up over some like stupid petty thing, but it was them pulling apart in order to work on themselves to come back together once they were kind of healed or in the process of healing, which I really respected, because I think that while both characters very much appreciated the other person for having helped with their personal struggles, the other person was not completely fixing things for them. And I felt that that whole like arc was very well written. The actual writing overall was not brilliant, so I did end up giving it 4 stars, but my enjoyment level of this book I think was slightly higher than The Stolen Heir, so I'm kind of considering bumping The Stolen Heir down to a 4 and then boosting Most of All You up to 4.5, because like I said, I just really love the story so much. There's so many beautiful quotes, so much depth to this book and so much to think on. I've actually ordered myself a physical copy, which I was hoping would come in the mail by today so I could be like holding the book of this video, but I just got an email yesterday saying that it's due in 10 to 15 working days when I was told it would come within the week. So that's obviously not an option. I will have a physical copy and I'm going to transfer my annotations over from my Kindle to the physical copy, and it is very much a favourite, but not like a 5-star favourite. I kind of reserve a place within my all-time favourite books that really impacted me but were not like absolutely flawless in every area, and that's definitely kind of like within that category. This is actually my first book of Mia Sheridan's, and so I can't wait to read Archer's Voice because that's the most popular one, and I think that could be a 5-star having seen and heard reviews. And then the very last book I picked up in January was Convenience Store Woman by, I need to actually Google this because I cannot pronounce that name. Sayaka Murata. Murata? Murata. Sayaka Murata. This is a piece of translation fiction originally written in Japanese, but it was translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. I really enjoyed this book. I read it within 2 days. I read the first third in like the afternoon of 30th, and it's only a short little book, so I read the other 100 pages in a couple of hours on the evening of the 31st, so I really squeezed this book in. But I did manage to get through it and I really enjoyed it. This kind of felt like a little bit of a fable. We're basically following our main character. I'm going to Google her name because I don't know how to pronounce it. Kyoko. And I'll read the little bit on the back because I feel like this just kind of sums up in a more concise way than I'll be able to. Kyoko doesn't fit in. She's 36 years old, she's never had a boyfriend, and she's been working in the same convenience store for 18 years. Her parents wish she'd get a better job, her friends wonder why she won't get married. But Kyoko knows what makes her happy, and she's not going to let anyone take her away from her convenience store. So like the blog says, we're following Kyoko. She works in a convenience store, and she's worked there since she was in college, where she started as kind of like a part-time job, and then she just ended up working full-time. She's not in any kind of like managerial position within the stores, so she's always kind of been on like the entry level. Her friends and her sister are married, have children, then they're either like stay-at-home mums or stay-at-home housewives who are married to husbands who are big like money earners, or they themselves bring back the bacon. Kyoko is very content working in her job. She doesn't have any aspirations to do anything different with her life, and she's very careful with like the time she goes to bed and the food that she intakes, because she's conscious of the fact that she needs to be like on her best form in order to be like working. Gradually Kyoko's parents and her sister and friends, as well as this random guy she meets along the way, tell her that she should be making changes, that she quits her job, goes searching for another one. This guy is introduced into her life who starts living with her, and she becomes more kind of like acceptable to society. But she makes a lot of personal sacrifices in order to do this, and she ends up super unhappy. At the end of the book, everything kind of comes full circle, and she ditches all those things that she's kind of gained and goes back to working at the convenience store, and once again manages to find that contentment in it. Kyoko kind of explains to us things that happened in her childhood that were kind of extremely unusual, but in the ways that she treated other people. And so the thing that I didn't like about this book was that I feel like her contentment in this kind of more simple job seemed to be kind of justified through the fact that she was an unusual person, whereas I thought this would have been cool if she'd just been, you know, like a regular person, for want of better phrasing, but still kind of content in like a more basic job. So that was kind of like my main critique with the book, but overall I really did enjoy it. I think it's an important read. I think it's really great that we have this and that it was able to be translated into English, because obviously this would have been hugely impactful in Japanese culture, where it's very like work focused, but the whole world benefits from hearing the story. I kind of took what I needed from it, and now I'm happy to pass on to other people. So yeah, my overall rating for this book was 3.5 stars. I did really enjoy it. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I'm really glad to have read it. So there you have it. Those are the 5 books that I read in the month of January. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. It will be my February TBR video, which I can't wait to share with you. Subscribe if you like this video and you'd like to stick around to see more content, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye.